So today, routing pipe. One of the first things I would recommend to you is to go ahead and split your screen into a plan view and at least one other view, preferably an isometric view. That will give you the ability to see your pipe from overhead and then also in a 3D view. I also like to stay away from shading the viewport, giving it a realistic view, a conceptual view, that sort of thing. It tends to bog down your computer and your video card unless you have a pretty high-end system. And then even if you do have a high-end system, you can regain some of that processing power to use in the actual routing of your pipe, especially if your files start to grow quite large, if you don't break your levels down into several different divisions. Anything you can do to save your processing and video power will certainly help you in routing pipe. The second thing I would say is, always keep an eye on the command line. I say it 3 times there, and then right below it I say, did I mention use the command line? Because I see a lot of people that they just click their mouse and start drawing, and they don't really pay attention to what's available on the command line and the options that are there. So we will go over some of those options when we actually get into AutoCAD MEP. But some of the main ones that I like to use all the time is the plane command, which will rotate the plane that you're actually drawing on. By default, you're always drawing in the plan view plane, but you can, which is the XY plane, but you can modify that to draw in the XZ plane or the YZ plane, which will allow you to rotate your pipe in any direction that you need. And in conjunction with the plane is the compass. If you're not using the compass, you're missing out on a lot of good things that allow you to rotate your fittings to certain angles and do different things. It also allows you to type in the size as you're drawing pipe and just change your size on the fly instead of running back to the property palette, using the drop down and changing the size there. Quickly you can use the command line and change the size on the fly, as well as the slope. Using the slope command, you'll find that you can do a lot of your elevation changes right at the command line without even going to the 3D view. It allows you to do offsets, whether it's a 45-degree offset, a 30-degree offset, whatever. That's what it allows you to do without clicking into your 3D viewport. I also see a lot of people going and trying to place a fitting on the end of a pipe, rotate it around to the correct angle, and you should always try to use your routing preferences to get your fittings into your drawing. And once the fitting is into your drawing, go ahead and manipulate it then. Don't try to bring it in from the pipe fitting add command and place it on your pipe and then get it rotated the way you want it. Use the routing preference and the command line tools to get the fitting as close as possible to what you can, and then click on the fitting and try to rotate it the way you need. And then finally, the last 2 things, you have all your parts in your routing preferences, but put your non-routable parts on the tool palettes. That'll allow you to click on those parts and bring them into your drawing quickly and easily. And we'll go ahead and we'll demonstrate that. And then finally, we'll talk about the parallel pipe add command that allows you to draw more than one pipe at once. You have one master pipe and a couple slave pipes, and everything will follow that master pipe. So if you're putting offsets in, 90-degree bends, 45-degree bends, everything will line up just perfectly. So let's go ahead and get into AutoCAD MEP and just start looking at some of the things that I talked about. And the first thing I talked about was splitting the screen up into a couple different views. So here on the right-hand side, I click into it. I have a top view, or what I like to call a plan view. And on the left-hand side, I have a isometric view. Those can be brought up by using the viewport command, and it'll just allow you to split your screen any way that you want. Now, I prefer to have 2 split screens. Some people prefer to do 3. It's your, whatever you feel comfortable with. I feel most comfortable with 2. That's all that I really need to do. And if I need something more than 2, then I'll just modify my viewport on the fly. Now, I talked about keeping your shading in a 2D wireframe versus a hidden or possibly a realistic or even a conceptual type of look. And again, my preference for that is purely it just keeps your machine running a little bit faster. In congested areas, the 2D wireframe can get a little bit busy. It's hard to tell what's going on, but the more you work at it, the more you train your brain to actually see the 2D wireframe in a 3D hidden type view. So you'll start to see everything in the same way that you would see in a shaded viewport if you just start using it and train your brain that way. So let's take this over here back to a plan view, and let's look at our command line options, because I kind of highlighted that as being extremely important, and I do feel that it's extremely important. So a couple ways to start routing pipe. From your ribbon, you can just come up here and start the pipe command, and when you start it at the command line, you'll see it's just pipe add. So if you wanted to start it at the command line, you would just start typing pipe add, and it's the exact same thing as clicking the button on the ribbon. So you can start in a new spot and start running pipe, or when you start that command, you can come and you can click on an existing pipe and continue running that. And when I do that, when I click on an existing pipe, the new pipe will take on all the properties of the old pipe. So this existing pipe was chilled water. I was using the EC copper press fit routing preference. Notice if I start that command again and I click this pipe down here, now I've taken on the standard system with the EC copper press fit routing preference. So when you click a pipe, it will take on the preferences of that pipe. If you start the command in general and click out in space, it will use the preferences of the last pipe that was ran. So what I mean by that is, here if I run a standard pipe, and then if I start again and I change this to a chilled water system, and then maybe I change this to 3-inch, then I run it. If I run it one more time, it's going to set up and use the last known settings that it used. So something to remember, if you're having some issues with pipe and things aren't working out the way you want, if you start the command and it gives you bad data, if it's telling you that it's giving you a routing preference where it keeps on bringing up the choose a part dialog, the way to get around that is just accept everything it gives you until you're able to actually start routing pipe. Then just come in here and change the routing preference to one that you can use, one that's set up and one that's not corrupt in any way. It's hard to demonstrate that because it's hard to get something that's not working correctly, but it does happen. And when that does happen, instead of continually canceling out and trying to figure out what's wrong, just go ahead and place in a piece of pipe or just continue to choose a part that it comes up until you're able to get to the point where you can modify your property palette and then choose a good routing preference. Other things to look at on the property palette as we're routing pipe is we can set our cut length if we want. So as we're routing pipe, we can tell it that we want 10-foot sections. So every 10 feet it'll break the pipe and put in a coupling. But if you notice as I'm routing pipe, it's not doing anything until I complete the command. Then once the command is complete, it'll go through here and break the pipe into 10-foot sections. You can see the cut length is 10 feet, and it'll place the coupling as defined in your routing preference. Some other things with the property palette. You can set your justification. When routing pipe, most of the time I like to set my justification to bottom center. That is so I can start the command, have my justification at bottom center, and then, and remember earlier I talked about the command line, I can come down here and just type in E for elevation and choose 10 feet. And then when I start routing pipe, the bottom of my pipe is going to be 10 feet. So if you look at the tooltip, you can see that the bottom is 10 feet. And while we're on the subject of looking at the tooltip, down there at the elevation, you'll see 3 values. The first one is always the center line of the pipe. The second one is the top of the pipe, and the third one is the bottom of the pipe. Now the elevation will only look this way when you're working with a non-sloping pipe. If I was to start my pipe command again and add some slope to it, and I'll use the property palette to do that, and run some pipe, you can see I have my compass on, and at my compass you can see right there it says slope is 1/8. So now that I've ran some pipe that is sloped, and if we look at that in a 3D view, actually an elevation view, you can see that that is sloping up because it was a positive slope. But if I hover over that pipe and get my tooltip, you can see that the elevation has changed. Instead of showing the center line and the bottom of pipe and the top of pipe, it's now showing the center line from the start of the pipe to the end of the pipe. So in this little section, 10-foot section of pipe here, it goes from 10 feet 1 1/16 to 10 feet 2 5/16. And again, that is the center line elevation. So what else do we have here on the property palette? Let me go ahead and turn off this specify cut length. And as I said, you can set your justification. You can add offsets to that justification. So if I put in a horizontal offset of 12 feet, and let's say, let me just throw a line up here on my drawing, and let's say I wanted to hold that pipe 12 feet off of, or excuse me, 12 inches off of that line, or let's say that line represents a wall. Then when I start my pipe command, it's going to run it 12 inches to the center line of that pipe. And let me put in my 12 inches. And it should go positive value, so you can see that's going up here. Even though I'm clicking on the line, it offset at 12 inches. So let's try that again. And now that I'm in the command, I can turn this off. And more importantly, I want it 12 inches to the outside edge of the pipe. So I'm going to change this to the bottom right. And I'm going to go ahead and turn my slope off. So now when I start to route this pipe, instead of being 12 inches to the center, I'm actually 12 inches to the outer edge. Exactly, 12 inches. So one thing to keep in mind with this, if I come back and run the pipe add command again, my horizontal offset is a positive 12 inches. So the Y is in, the Y going up is a positive 12 inches. And if I do that with the X, so if I draw a line here, and then I start the pipe add command, I still have my bottom right and 12 inches. I start that command, there it goes on that side. So it's something to get used to. The offset is not always in the positive X direction. If I was to come back and run that going this way, you can see that the pipe actually offsets on the other side. So it's just something you need to get used to. If you need it to be on the other side, you can actually change that to a minus offset. So now when I come over here going the same direction I did last time, it offsets on the other side. And just to try that on the horizontal, we come over here, you can see that it's offsetting on the other side. So some little tricks that you can use to get the pipe exactly where you want it. If you're routing down a hallway and the hallway has twists and turns and you always want to keep it a certain distance off the wall, you can go ahead and use that offset to get you there. So let's go ahead and reset this to bottom center, and let's reset this to 0 and look at a couple more things. So we went in and we ran some slope pipe. We can set our slope format here. I prefer to use the rise over run because that's what most plumbing contractors use. So that's how I prefer to do it. This bottom one here, you can use different types of setups here, your choice of what you want to use. Bend method, elbow, or an offset. 99% of the time you're going to want to have this set to elbow and have your bend angle and branch angle get the values from your catalog. And we'll come down here to look at the routing options, which I think are some of the most important things. Is you can set this up for your branch fitting, so when you have branches you can use takeoffs, T's, teaser Y's, or you can set this up for just a Y with the lateral or a Y with the T. So you'll probably be changing this a lot depending on the type of system that you are using. So if I'm in a copper system, I'm probably going to put a T in, and so when I start the pipe command, I can come up here and start at the end of this pipe, and you notice I'm still offsetting because when I changed those values I wasn't actually in the middle of a pipe command. So let's go ahead and change those back. We have our no specify cut length and we have our slope at 0. So now when I start drawing, it's right there in the center. And when I choose my pipe command, add command again, I can put a pipe anywhere along this pipe that I want, and it's going to go ahead and add a T. So I do that again. Let's say I want a T anywhere along here. It will put in a T because in my routing preference I have this particular T set up. If I start that again, so I change this to a takeoff, when I come up here and select my pipe, it's going to ask me to put in some type of weldolet, threadolet, shape nipple, because on my piping routing preference I do not have a takeoff specified, because most of the time when routing pipe I won't have a takeoff, and so I wanted to ask me what I want to put in there at that time. So I'm going to cancel out of that, and you see as I'm going to keep canceling until I'm able to do something, and at that point I'll just hit escape. I can actually add a T or a takeoff by choosing the plus grip. So I'm going to choose this plus grip, and you can see that it's putting in a T for me. That will allow me to get the T in the center of my pipe. I prefer to use the pipe add command and then slide along my pipe curve connector and put it anywhere in there along that pipe that I want. When you use the plus grip, you're only going to get the center of the piece of that pipe. So then you have to add your T, and then you have to come along and move it to where you need to be. And that you get the exact same preferences if you're using a butt weld type system. So here I'll come down to the thread and groove, and I'll choose a size that has our butt welds. So I'll put a piece of pipe in there, I'll add pipe add command again, and this time I'll come down and choose takeoff, and then I can put a takeoff in there and get a fitting that I'd normally use. Now when I take off from a 4-inch pipe, I probably only put in a maximum of 2, which gets me down into threaded. So maybe more realistically, this would be a 6-inch pipe, and this would be a 3-inch. So earlier I talked about the command line, and I said I touted its uses, but I haven't really demonstrated it a lot. So let's start over and look at the command line. I'm going to switch back to copper and switch back to 2-inch and tell you what I was talking about. So I'm just routing a single piece of pipe, and I need to offset up and over something. There's a couple different things I can do. I know that I'm routing at 10 foot. I have my bottom of center here, so I know the bottom of my pipe is at 10 foot. Let's say I just want to do a straight 90 up and over an obstruction, another pipe that's maybe moving horizontal. Using the command line, I can just real quick type in EL for elevation, then type in 11 feet, and you'll see my pipe went up to 11 feet. Over here, you can click, you can see it went up. I can then add in command line, type in 12 or get a 12-inch section of pipe. And then I can type EL again and go back down to 10 feet and then just keep running. Using that method, I didn't have to come over here in 3D, and to do that over here, I would have had to come in here. I would have had to change my plane so you can see my compass. Again, at the command line, there's plane, so I hit P for plane, and that changes it to where I'm able to then rotate in a different plane. And then I would have to type in EL 11 feet. And then I would have to change my plane again, 12-inch piece of pipe, and then I would have to change my plane one more time, EL 10 feet, and then change my plane one more time. So it's easy to do here in 3D, but it's actually much easier to do in plan view if you just use the command line, or you can actually use the property palette in the same way. I just think the command line is faster, but I could come over here and type in 11 feet. My pipe's going to go up to 11-foot elevation, type in 12, then come over here, and that actually went to 11 inches, which is fine. Now I'll put in 10 feet and go like this. So using the elevation command to put in your 90s when you're going up or down is very powerful. You can quick and easily get your pipe where you need it to be. You can also do something very similar by using the slope command. So as I'm routing pipe, if I come in here at the command line and type SL for slope, and then if I put in a 12 and hit enter, my slope of 12, I am going up at 45 degrees. So now if I say elevation 11 feet and went up, slope of 12, I said 45 degrees, it didn't go up at 45. Let's try that one more time. When I run it like this, you can see that I'm sloping up. I can then change my slope back to 0. You can see that it put it back in straight, and then I can change my slope again back to minus 12, put in a small little slope piece of pipe, and then change my slope back to 0. And what I did is that now I put in another offset that is very similar to the first, except I'm using a rolling offset. So let me try that one more time without getting that 90 in there. So slope of 12, I'll put a short little piece of pipe in, slope of 0, another short little piece of pipe, and then a slope of -12, and another short little piece of pipe, and then I'll continue on. And let's see here. I think I put my numbers in backwards, so let me just, sorry about that. Let me just start over with a fresh piece of pipe here. So we'll do pipe, slope of 0, slope of 0. So now it's going to be straight. So we come over here, we see it's nice and straight. I'll stay in elevation view. Now put in a slope of 12, short little piece of pipe, slope of 0, short little piece of pipe, and a slope of -12. Another piece of pipe, and then a slope of 0. Then I like to just take this, drag it up to where it needs to be, and then I can drag this down to the elevation that I need it to be. So we spoke about this in the past. If you have your dynamic input turned on, I can choose this grip, and if I hit the tab button till I get to the bottom of the pipe, so 8'8", 31 32, I can just modify that to 8 feet, and the bottom of that pipe will now be 8 feet. So hitting the tab button cycles between the center, the top, the bottom, and then a relative change. So if I want to make this pipe at 7 feet, I can do that. So slope command will give you great access for putting in a offset. If I needed to put in a rolling offset, the best way to do that is, so if I had a situation here where this was off to the side, maybe 12 inches, the best way to do that is just let AutoCAD MEP choose what it needs to do. So when I selected those together, it's giving me a option of how to connect them. If I look at the command line, we can see that it's saying connect or preview the next solution 1 out of 17. So it's giving me 17 different options on how to connect those. So I'll just go next until I start to get one that I like. So here is one with, it's a offset and an angle, but it's using a 90 and a 45. So let's see if I can get one that's using a 45 and a 45. So there is a rolling offset there, and so I'm going to hit accept. It gives me probably pretty much what I was looking for. It calculated the correct angles. So we view this in our object viewer. We can see that that is probably exactly what I wanted. I look at it from the front, from the side, from left and right. So this is what I spoke about earlier with don't try to place the fitting and rotate it to the rotation that you want. Can you imagine how difficult it would have been for me to go out and if I select this fitting and I choose add selected, come over here, place it on this piece, try to rotate it to the angle that I need it to rotate, and do the same thing over here and get those to match up. It would have been extremely difficult. This way, I can let AutoCAD MEP do the work. And you can choose the different options till you get one that is very close to what you need. In this case, I found one right here, accept, and that'll give me my rolling offset. Don't try to figure that out on your own. I'm sure you can do it, but it'll just take way too much time. And the whole idea behind this is to get things into your drawing as fast as possible. One of the things we spoke about was putting our little known fittings on the tool palette. So in any time you want, you can always select a fitting, click on it with the left mouse button and drag it. You can see the little square by my cursor, and drag it over to a palette. Before I do that, I need to save my drawing. I'll just call it drawing 1. So again, I'll select that, left click on it, hold the mouse button down until you see the rectangle at your cursor. Then you can bring it over and drag and drop it onto a tool palette. Then you'll get that fitting up here on your tool palette, and then you can select that fitting, and it'll bring it right into your drawing for you for placement wherever you need it to go. So if we come to the end of this pipe, I then take this fitting and place it, and even though this was a 3/4 inch elbow, when I placed it on the pipe, it's trying to take on the properties of that pipe. And it says, okay, it's a 2-inch elbow. Let's grab whichever one you need. You need the 45 degree, the 90, or if we scroll over, we'll see that this 90 is actually a reducing elbow, which I don't want. So I'm going to choose the 2x2 90. And then you can see it puts that elbow in there. And it's then going to ask you for a rotation value. And you can come over here into the 3D view and rotate it the way you want. So I can rotate it up 45 degrees. So on just regular elbows that you have in your routing preference, you can put them over here on your tool palette, but it's more preferable just to put the fittings that you won't use in a routing preference, such as street elbows, adapters, maybe some oddball couplings. Those sort of things are the things that you want to drag over to your tool palette. Your elbows and your T's and anything that can belong in a routing preference are things that you should probably place first from the routing preference. So I placed that elbow at a 45 degree angle. I could do the same thing right here by coming in this direction at 90 degrees, then just changing my slope to 12 and placing that fitting. And you can see I got that elbow already in there in the exact same location. A lot quicker than going to the tool palette and bringing it over. So again, I was able to do that by changing the slope. You can do it from the property palette, but a lot quicker and easier to do it with the command line. Now, one other thing to put in here, if you need to put in back-to-back fittings, you can do it with your routing preferences too, by instead of dragging your pipe way out here, just put it very close to the pipe as you can. You'll get a 90 degree fitting there, then you can drag it up right here, and then it'll give you a very short piece of pipe in there. Now in reality, you can probably make it a little bit smaller, but it'll go to the smallest that it can be, and then it'll start to push this other piece of pipe back. So in back-to-back fittings, definitely use your 90s and just put in little short pieces of pipe, and it'll do the best that it can to get you there. One other thing I wanted to speak about today was the parallel pipe add command. So if you have a rack of pipe that you need to run, you can start your rack, and let's copy this over here. So let's get these 6 inches apart. And so let's say I have a chilled water return, then here I have a chilled water supply. And then let's make this a heating hot water return, and then we'll copy it down, say 6 inches, and make this one a heating hot water supply. So if I have to route this, these exact pipes through several different corridors, different 90s twists and turns, maybe go up a level, I can route them all together and save some time by coming up here and choosing the parallel pipes command on the ribbon, Or you can see right there on the tooltip, I can just type in parallel routing. So when I use that command, it's going to tell me to select a baseline object. So I want to select this pipe as my master pipe, baseline pipe, and then right away it's going to tell you to select your parallel pipes. So I'm going to select the remaining 3 pipes. I know that my pipes are 6 inches apart, so I'm going to hit enter, then I'll just start running, and you can see that it'll place the other ones in there for me. So I'll come up at a 45, and I'll go straight here, and again you can see it's keeping that 6 inches between the pipes. So here I'll turn 90, I'll come back down, I'll go this way. And right now I'm just at 4 feet, so let me use the command line and I'm going to go up to 20 feet. And then I'm going to go this way a little bit and then down. If I come over here, we can see that all of that is happening with all 4 of my pipes at the same time. And this rarely happens, but if the pipes need to change size, and let's see, this routing preference doesn't have a good coupling, reducing coupling set in it. So let's just come down here and get a, oops, see it's asking me for an eccentric coupling, and the reason why it's doing that is because justification is set to bottom center. So it's going to try to keep that bottom center, and the only way to do that is with an eccentric coupling. If I change this to just center center and then change this again, it's going to use the coupling that I have, my concentric coupling that I have set up in my routing preference. You can see that all 3 pipes change to 1.5 inches, which for the most part never happens in real life, but in the world of software, it can happen all at once like magic. All right, so that's parallel piping. You know, there are precious few times when you can use this command and have it work like this, but when you do need it, it's there, and it allows you to add lots of pipe quickly and easily. So I see one question there. Will these parts dragged onto the tool palette work in a different drawing or just this drawing? Those parts will work in any drawing whatsoever, because what it actually does when you drag these parts to the tool palette, if I right click on this and go to properties, you can see that it brings up almost a replication of the property palette. Not quite, but pretty close. And you can change the different properties of this tool on the tool palette. So I can change the system, the OSB chilled water. I can change the layer key. If my system location is set to this dash dash, then it will get the chilled water from the current drawing. If I choose this drop down and go out and get a different drawing, then if the chilled water system is not in your current drawing, it will import it from this specified drawing here. And then you can change all the default values of it, as I said, going down. You can add your insulation if you want. A nice little thing about that is I can copy this tool, right-click copy, paste it, and bring it in, then go to the properties of this tool. And when it brings it up, I can double-click on this picture, and I can actually change this to any fitting that I want. So if I say all, come down here, so now I can just change this to a double elbow if I so desire, and then just hit OK. And this is now a double elbow. I hit OK. I come back here. Well, my picture's off as well as my text because I did a copy-paste. But if I right-click on here and say refresh image, it comes in and it gets that image of that double elbow, and then I can right-click on here and change the text to anything that I want. So here I'll just put in, you know, Charlotte double elbow. So this is a fitting that you'll probably never have in a routing preference. I guess you could use it as a T and use it that way, but most of the time you'll want to be placing this fitting manually. So this is where it'd be a good idea to have it setting up on a property on a tool palette where you can come in and place it. Now, one little thing that I didn't talk about, which again, it's the command line. Always read the command line. When I place this fitting, it brings it in. It's always connected, or it's always being placed at connector 1 of the fitting. If I come down here at the command line and come over here, you see this little base point. So if I select that or just type B, it's going to change the base point that that fitting is being placed at. So I hit it twice. I can now place it right there. Then I can come in here and place it on the fitting like so. And it's going to try to find a coupling. And so I'm just going to place in a no hub coupling for it, like that. So again, I can't stress it enough. The command line, there's a lots of little goodies on there if you just look at it. You can change the elevation, the system, so it's going to say when I hit system, it's going to ask me chilled water, or if I hit the little question mark, it's going to give me a bunch of different options. So instead of chilled water, I'm going to put it in a 10 and get my heating hot water. So if I select it, there you can see that it went into the heating hot water. So anything you can change on the property palette, you can change on the command line and go through a little bit quicker and easier than coming over and trying to change things on the property palette. So that is most of what I wanted to cover today with routing. I covered everything that was here. There certainly is a lot more. I could talk forever about routing pipe and little tricks to do. But if you just start to incorporate the things that we spoke about today, you'll see that you will start to get your pipe into your design a lot quicker.